everybody, how are you guys doing? It's your girl Audrey, your income producing homemaker, your property manager with a personality. Y'all look, I took the hiatus that I needed and I'm excited. So over this Easter break, over this Resurrection Sunday kind of break, I did exactly that, guys. I unplugged and I had an opportunity to really just tune back into my family, to my loved ones, to enjoy them, to not be attached to my phone, to not be worried about work, none of that. And it was so refreshing, and it was exactly what I needed. And for some of us, sometimes holidays and get-togethers and things like that can be a sad thing. Some of us, it can be a joyous thing. I would say growing up, it was kind of a mixture of both. But man, this holiday was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. We had, fun and laughter and all that good stuff. We actually went into some deep dive conversations, some very necessary ones. And one of the things that God was just pointing me back to and reminding me of, that even though it was Resurrection Sunday, right? This is the time where the majority of the world, the majority of people, kind of wake back up and they reacquaint themselves with the crucifixion and the resurrection of Jesus, the ultimate sacrifice that was made for them. And it's such a beautiful thing. But one of the things that God reminded me of is for us to not forget our resurrection in our everyday lives. And what do I mean by that? What that means is that, and I know when I was younger, we used to have something called testimony service, right? Our personal resurrections are our testimonies. And I think we've gotten away from that as a practice from a lot of the churches. We've gotten away from that as a practice as a people. But God wants us to know, and he wants to remind us, do not forget to testify. Do not forget to tell your testimony. Do not forget to remind yourselves of your testimony. What that does is it reignites your confidence in God. It reignites your faith in God. It reignites your walk with God. It reignites all of that, because it reminds you of how good, how powerful, how mighty he truly is. And if he came through for you once, he'll definitely do it again. But do not forget your own personal stories of resurrections. It is necessary. It is necessary. For me, I know I was thinking about it, and one of the ways that I was thinking about it is just all the different ways, and it's so many that honestly it's getting hard for me to keep count. But all the different ways that God has come through again and again and again and again. And I was thinking about that growing up as a young child. It started off at age 2, being raised by my great grandmother in a home with 5 other siblings, 5 girls and 1 boy, in the middle of the hood. In the middle of the hood. I can barely even say that we had government assistance. But she made it happen. Not once do I remember our lights being turned off. Not once do I remember going without or not being fed. That is resurrection. Now it's all adults. None of us going to jail. None of us being strung out on drugs or tied and bound to alcohol or anything like that. And each having our own success in our own respective ways. That is resurrection. When I talk about getting a 4.2, 4.3 GPA in high school, going off to school with a full scholarship, being sexually assaulted in that same school, dropping out, thinking that I had no other hope or no other future, but now looking at myself years later, and now I am a business owner, a CEO of my own company, brokerage and property management company, growing locally in the area. I have not had to rely on anybody's 9 to 5 for the past 7 years. And God has provided me 6-figure income. That is a resurrection. When I talk about facing hardship, depression, living in my office, when I talk about those things, and man, thinking about the goodness of God, that is resurrection. That is resurrection. Guys, when I'm looking at lost. I'm talking about never being raised in a household with my mother or my father, thinking my relationship with my father is absolutely dead, is absolutely lost, and thinking about sitting on the couch with him this good old Easter Sunday and seeing the goodness of God be made known. That is resurrection. That's resurrection. I'm talking about after I lost my first child, already fearful that I wouldn't even be able to conceive, that I wouldn't be able to have a child. And I lost my first child and crying out to God and saying, Lord, I know this is not the plan you have for me. And then looking at my baby today, seeing dance, twirl around with her little bows in her hair, looking like little Minnie Mouse. That is resurrection. I'm talking about when those who have told me that I never would have made it, I wasn't worthy enough. I'm talking about coming to a place in such deep depression, in such deep despair, coming to a place where I had such low self-esteem, where I had such low worth and self-value within myself that I didn't know who I was, that I allowed myself to be in a 10-year situationship going absolutely nowhere. And I finally allowed God to pull me up out of that thing. And looking at myself now, years later, I am married to the man of my dreams, with one daughter and another one on the way. Boy, I tell you, that is resurrection. Guys, when we allow God to take over, he does what only God can do. And it's so important that we remind ourselves. It is so important that we continue to encourage one another and lift one another up, but that we tell our testimonies, that we tell our resurrection stories, that we don't just keep it to ourselves, because it's so important, because it keeps the faith, the confidence, and the Father alive. Guys, I am so excited. I'm going to go ahead and get to my appointment. I'm losing son here. But when I tell you, please take what you need and get on about your business.